You're listening to the Dad Whisperer podcast with Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield, the place where you, as a dad, will gain more tools for your fathering toolbox, and where moms and daughters are also invited to listen into the conversation. Now, here is your host, Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield.
Hello and welcome back to the Dad Whisperer podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield, and I'm so happy that you're joining me here again today, Dad, especially if you want to add more tools to your fathering toolbox. Well, you know the grid I use every week. Oh my goodness, you could recite this right along with me. What do I always encourage you to say? Because I want you to get this. On your mark, get set, go. So Dad, picture yourself standing with other dads, getting ready to run your fathering race this week. I'm on the sidelines as your coach, cheering you on and saying, on your mark, get set, go. On your mark is the topic or the theme. Get set, we're going to fill that in with stories and stats. And go is always your practical action step so you can put your love for your daughters and your sons into action this week. Well, today I have a guest coach joining me named Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith. She is an internal medicine physician, an international speaker, a spiritual mentor and coach who is dedicated to restoring mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. Now you can see why I've invited her here. She is also the award-winning author of Set Free to Live Free and Sacred Rest, and the host of I Choose My Best Life podcast. Her most recent book will be the focus of our conversation today. Being Fully Known, subtitle, The Joyful Satisfaction of Beholding, Becoming, and Belonging, which addresses the universal longings we all have to be deeply seen, loved, and connected, a message that resonates powerfully in today's fast-paced and often disconnected world. Dr. Saundra is a mom to 2 sons, and she and her husband Bobby live near Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome, Saundra Dalton-Smith.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're finally doing this.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Honestly, I'm trying to think. I have really not, in almost 9 years of this podcast and radio program, had a physician on the program. So I love that you're bringing a wealth of knowledge about spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, interactions, because it all goes together, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we can't leave one part out. I mean, I love how God says our body is a temple. Mm-hmm. And so we have to tune into the body and the emotions and all of that. So today for On Your Mark, building off of what I just shared with all of you about her book, I'm titling On Your Mark this conversation, Seeing, Loving, and Connecting, a Dad's Guide to a Deeper Bond with His Daughter. Let me say that again so you all get that here at the front end. Seeing, Loving, and Connecting, a Dad's Guide to a Deeper Bond with His Daughter. So now for Get Set, Dr. Saundra, I've just got to ask you, what led you to write this book, Being Known, The Joyful Satisfaction of Beholding, Becoming, and Belonging?
Well, it's coming from my book, Sacred Rest, Recover Your Life, Renew Your Energy, Restore Your Sanity. And that particular book shared about the 7 different types of rest. And it's interesting that I saw so many people get breakthrough in their fatigue and their burnout from that particular book. But there was still this element of rest that I felt like it needed to be discussed. And it's the rest of identity, of being able to be authentically who you are and to be able to explore that without the limitations of other people's expectations or even your own limiting beliefs about who you are. And so that was kind of the connection between these 2 books. And for myself, it was part of my own journey that I had to walk through, and one that I've seen a lot of women have to walk through as well.
Can you share more about your personal journey then?
Yeah, I burned out as a physician pretty early on in my career, right around the time I had my children. I got to a place where I remember picking them up from daycare, getting home and laying on the floor thinking, how did we get here? And this place of just complete burnout and exhaustion. And from there, I'm a researcher at heart. I've been doing research since I was literally 16 years old.
Okay.
Got my first research job as a teenager, and I love research. And so when I have a problem, that's kind of where my mindset goes to. Let me research how to get out of this situation. From that research came that framework, the 7 types of rest. And for myself, I had to break free from an identity of just thinking I'm just a doctor. because I was noticing that there were certain parts of my personality that weren't being used. Like I love communicating. I love art. I love creativity
And writing. Not
I
just
love
researching,
writing.
but
Yes, there are
writing.
so many different parts of myself that I wasn't using. And I realized that trying to keep those hidden, trying to keep those contained was its own level of stress and unrest. And having the freedom to be able to step into new aspects of my identity gives you a sense of relief, a sense of freedom, of really showing up in a level of truth about who you are.
So looking back at that time where, I think if you're a dad who does have an adult daughter, who maybe has her own kids, it goes without saying there's not much time for yourself in that season. It's all about those kids, those babies, right? And so how did you find space to connect with some of those creative gifts that weren't being utilized? Did that come later or did it come in that season?
It's a journey. It came in a process. And I think that's the thing. There were layers upon layers. It's like peeling back, especially you're having to battle through some of your own traumas. You're having to battle through some of your own negative self-talk. You're battling through cultural things like how people really how they view rest. For some of us, rest is like the reward after work is done. And really my whole platform is built around the fact that rest is actually how you are able to perform. It is what has to happen. It has to happen first if you want to perform at your highest level of productivity. Because right now we have a lot of people who are really functional burnouts. They meet the full recommendations and criteria from the World Health Organization for all three characteristics that lead to burnout.
Which are?
Fatigue. That's 80% of the world says they're tired all the time. A decrease in the joy that you get from the work that you do. Large population of people. And the work that you produce is lesser than the quality of what you're capable of doing.
Okay.
And so when people have all three checked off, they are functionally burned out. But a lot of them still show up at work every day and produce out of their emptiness. And so we have this culture that says, well, let's just keep producing, even if what we're producing is lesser quality, we don't enjoy it, and I'm tired the whole time I'm doing it. Whereas if we allow ourselves to understand that there are different types of rest, different ways that we need to restore, and find that type of fatigue that we're experiencing, we can niche down and actually have a greater success in healing that part of ourselves.
So what are some of the ways then that we can rest? Because here's what I want to kind of back up for a minute and then I'll let you respond, Dr. Saundra. But what we're talking about, a dad seeing and loving and connecting with his daughter. That's how you fully know her.
Yes.
That's how she will feel fully known by you because she knows you see her. Then you're pursuing her, loving her, connecting with her.
Yes.
So if a dad sees his daughter at a place of burnout based on what you just gave us so wisely and concretely. I find men say, just give me the bullet points, give me the facts, ma'am, which you just did. And he says, okay, you just described my daughter. How do I approach her? Because I'm seeing her either heading to burnout or in a place of functional burnout. So I'm giving you a bunch of questions there all in one. I'll just punt to you and let you take it.
Yeah, I'll start with this. I've seen a lot of parents do this with their children, is to start off actually helping them discover which type of rest deficit they're dealing with. We actually have a free assessment at restquiz.com.
Restquiz.com.
Super simple. And you get an assessment, you actually get a number for all of the 7 types of rest. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, social, sensory, or creative.
Okay.
And so then if you're able to have a conversation, what I always like for parents to do, you take the quiz first. Then have the conversation and say, first. Hey, I took this quiz and it says I'm deficient in creative rest. Hun, have you ever heard of creative rest? Especially if it's a type of rest you may think, because when you read and learn about these things, someone always pops in your brain, right?
Well, I think about myself. It's interesting you say that because when you were just listing them off, I thought I take a Sabbath rest every week where I unplug from work. I don't look at social media. The goal is to really let my whole being rest.
Yes.
To refuel. Often being creative is where, some people say it's the outdoors, it's walking, it's this kind of thing. But usually if I can do some artistic project, I feel revitalized. Is that what you're talking
That's
about?
emotional rest, actually. Creative rest is you appreciating what has already been created. So it's not putting any demands on your creativeness. So when you're painting a picture, you're still putting a demand on your creativity. So
It doesn't feel like a demand, though.
That's not creative rest.
Oh.
That's emotional rest. Emotional rest is when
Thanks,
you're able
Doc.
to
You're helping me
express
understand
yourself
this.
without judgment. So when you are writing, for a scriptural example, David wrote Psalms. Country music singers write music.
Yeah.
And so artists paint pictures. That's an emotional release. What's inside of them gets expressed through their creativity,
Yeah.
and it's a level of authenticity. They're coming from the truest part of themselves. They don't care what anyone thinks about it. There's an expression. And so that's what you're getting to do. You're having a moment to be fully authentic and expressing artistically, and that's a release.
You know what I really love about what you're saying is that in these 7 kinds of rest, and a dad may say, I don't know how to open up this conversation with my daughter because I am seeing that she's either heading to burnout or is functionally burned out right now. Or maybe, Dad, you're saying, I am, but I never put that name on it until I heard, what Dr. Saundra had to say. But if you have an assessment, then it's about self-exploration and discovery. It's not you coming at your daughter or against her. She may go, Dad, why are you always telling me what to do? But it's that you're both discovering perhaps some areas of needed change in your life, and you can enter into that conversation together.
That's exactly it. I have so many families that state that that's what it did for them. Having terminology around these types of rest opened up conversations, to have conversations about emotional rest,
Yes.
social rest, creative rest, all the different areas without anybody feeling like you're pointing your finger at me telling me I'm doing it wrong.
Oh, I love that. So you write about a study, a large nationwide study, which reported over 55% of the U.S. population viewing their life as difficult or struggling. And then you said, this is a study which is still actively collecting data, whose follow-up results showed that most of the 55% who also, would even add that they didn't believe it would improve even over the next 5 years. So what about that side of the equation of maybe just kind of, again, like you said, not having much joy, not thinking there's hope for anything to change? Talk to a dad that either is there himself, so maybe he's struggling to see, love, and connect with his daughter because he doesn't feel seen. He's really at a deficit.
Yeah, I think the new book with Being Fully Known, that process of kind of making sure that you are evaluating if where you're at in your life is where you feel like you should be, or is it just the place that feels most stable and where you've settled, so to speak. In other words, the unknown seems riskier. So you stay in a place of discontent because the unknown seems riskier. And I think sometimes as parents, because we sometimes fear if our children try something new that they may fail at it. And I think we have to allow ourselves, even within our own journey with evaluating career and career changes and trying new things, sometimes the celebration is not in the outcome. The celebration is in the boldness, the courage, and the ability to do something because you recognize that I don't have to succeed at everything. That even in things that don't turn out the way that you desire, there's lessons to be learned, character to be built. There's something good you can celebrate out of it. And I think as parents, sometimes we see our children taking next steps, and it's our own fears and insecurities that actually hold them back. So for any parent who your child just came back and said, I want to do this, and you're thinking, oh no, you're giving them all the reasons why not to. Part of being loved and showing love is actually being able to recognize when you are the friendly attack coming against their vision and their dream. Because we don't want to do that to our children, but oftentimes we don't realize that part of our own fears get projected out.
Yes.
And I think it's important to analyze why do I want my child to try to go to Nashville and become a singer or whatever the thing may be. If it's because you don't want them to get hurt because of failure, because they may not succeed,
Or rejection.
and
all those things, yes.
realize that there is success in taking the step.
Yeah.
And can we celebrate them and love them through their journey of discovering who they are?
I heard an interview not that long ago where an adult woman said, my dad would always say to us, it was a regular question he would ask, where did you fail today? And what did you learn? I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that would be a game changer. So she said, I learned not to be afraid of it, not to minimize it, ignore it, push it down, deny it. It was brought out into the open, and my dad would celebrate. Oh, you didn't pass that test? Or she said one of the times I didn't make a sports team. And then my dad said, and what did you learn out of it? And she said, I made a new friend today. So you didn't go down this path, but you went down this path. Oh my goodness. Well, we have so much more still to talk about. We're going to take a break. When I come back, we'll continue this conversation. Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith. We'll be right back.
Are you a dad who has ever desired a deeper connection with your daughter, but haven't known how to go about it? Let's Talk Conversation Starters for Dads and Daughters is the very resource you need. Dr. Michelle wrote it with you dads in mind. This book will support you with scripted questions, equip you to decode your daughter, and inspire you with stories of other dads and daughters. Don't wait any longer to be the hero you want to be and that your daughter needs you to be. So, to let the talking begin, head on over to drmichellewatson.com/books and order your copy today. This book will become a favorite in your fathering toolbox and will give you the answers you've been looking for. That's drmichellewatson.com/books. Now, back to the Dad Whisperer podcast.
Welcome back. I'm here today with my new friend, Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith. We're talking about seeing, loving, and connecting with your daughter, a dad's guide to having a deeper bond with her. So let's keep talking about this mind, body, spirit connection, because you are a doctor. You're in the trenches with people's physical needs often. Mm-hmm. How often are you finding that you're obviously thinking about emotional deficits or spiritual deficits or mental health issues? What could you say to the dad that says, I don't know how to connect all those dots, so therefore I don't know how to connect with my daughter in those areas?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that. There's actually a story I talk about in the book as it relates to trauma, which is a mental health type issue. Specifically, it's a young woman within the book who is a graphic designer, and her father was someone who didn't support that. When she was a little girl, her little drawings that, kids do. Mm-hmm. And so she shared a story with me where she drew a picture and she showed it to her dad. And he said something like, that's cute, but you'll never be an artist. And
Wow.
It was one of those moments that it was a traumatic, he didn't hurt her, he didn't hit her, but it was a word trauma that occurred within her life that even to this day, as a graphic designer, when she presents something to someone, she gets heart palpitations, she gets kind of all withdrawn. She has these experiences that come. And I think we need to realize that the mind, the body, the spirit, they're connected. Mm-hmm. They respond as a unit. If your emotions get hit, you have hormones that get released as a response to that. And so I think as a dad, if you're thinking through just your relationship with your daughter, and the words that we say have great value, and sometimes when people have they're getting, and don't get me wrong, I'm a physician, there are medical reasons for things too, but for some things they worsen when the psychological worsens.
Yes.
And so headaches, somebody can have a little bitty headache because they didn't sleep well, and then they can have a stress situation where something that is completely emotional brings on a major migraine. We have to realize that the body and the spirit are connected, as well as the emotional aspect of it, and give people the opportunities to discuss what might be causing some of the physical.
Yeah, I often say to my clients, your body is talking in the only language it has. Mm-hmm. So Dad, Dr. Saundra is helping you have a mindset here to say, if I'm hearing my daughter talk about physical complaints, listen to those. That's how she'll feel seen, right? Known, loved, and connected. By the way that you tune in and say, hey, you know what? I noticed last week you mentioned headaches. This week you mentioned headaches. Then what could a dad ask as a follow-up to saying, I noticed that you have this going on?
Well, I think something also is to try to make the connection if you can, if certain things occur after certain conversations you have with your child, because sometimes we don't recognize the connection that's happening between the emotions and the physical complaint. If every time something goes on in your family, your child is calling saying that, I can't come because this is hurting or that
Or my
happened.
stomach is sick.
And it seems to be there's a pattern that you're noticing with that to have an opportunity to go deeper into what might be happening around that and just to open up conversation. A big part of being known is that ability to feel like the other person truly hears what you're saying.
Yes.
And so repeating even back something, because I find even with my own children, sometimes they'll make a statement like I don't believe that I can do that. And so as a parent, that's an opportunity me to hear there's a part of their belief system I need to reinforce.
Yeah, you talked about that negative self-talk.
Mm-hmm. So then you get to reinforce that. Or I love it sometimes when my kids will say, well, I don't see how that's possible. As a parent, if I believe it's possible, part of the thing I can support them with is, what are ways I can help them see that that's possible?
Not do it for them.
No, but help them see that that's possible.
I want to go back to the woman that you gave the example of, whose dad had said early in her life, a negative comment about her drawing. Do you know the rest of the story? Did she ever tell her dad that she remembered that? Was it something they ever processed? Or did she do it on her own?
She ended up doing it on her own, basically through therapy. I did a lot of coaching with her as we walked through some of the, the neuroplasticity of kind of retraining the brain as far
tell
as
people
from the negative
the cool
to
thing
positive.
about your brain with neuroplasticity. This is really cool, dads. Listen.
Yeah, well, the brain has the ability to be reprogrammed.
Yes.
And so as the same way that you say negative things over and over again till you believe them, you can say positive things over and over again till you believe them.
And your brain is the only organ in your body that continues, right? To
Absolutely.
Would the words be regenerate, or your brain is continually changing and growing?
It is, because those neural connections that you have, those processes can be regenerated over and over again and reprogrammed, almost like a computer gets programmed.
Absolutely. So what I would say, Dad, as a practical action step, because I love doing themes and then saying, Dad, okay, here's a way that you can do something. You can actually do something about this, is if you're a dad, there's no way you will remember what you said years ago that your daughter may have internalized and is still, it's a little tender or it's a lot tender. I mean, it may literally be blocking her in her adult life, and she still replays that, which is even my mom. Her dad, when he was teaching her how to drive, and my mom is in her late 80s now. Okay, so this is how long she's carried this message. But her dad told her she had a lead foot, that when she would drive and put her foot on the gas pedal, she had a lead foot, she would go too fast. She has hated driving her whole life. She has remembered that message. Now you think, it may not have been meant to be, harmful. Maybe it was meant to be corrective, but it's stuck. And so, Dad, if you want to do something proactive about that, a way that you could start a conversation with your daughter this week, today, text her, send a voice memo, set up a Zoom call if she doesn't live by you, or a FaceTime, or get together with her and say, hey, I just listened to this podcast that the one who's been hurt remembers longer than the one who, quote unquote, delivered the blow or made the statement. Check in with her and say, have I ever said something that has stuck with you that you still replay today from any time in the past? It could be last week, it could be 10 years ago, whatever. And make amends. Once you hear what she says, you get to update her operating system of her brain. As Dr. Saundra just said, new connections being made all the time. What do you think of that idea?
I think it's a great idea. And I think it opens up an opportunity for a true emotional rest. Because for a lot of people, emotional rest, they actually do trauma dumping and not true emotional rest. Emotional rest at its very core is the ability to say authentically what you need to say without censoring it. Most people trauma dump. So in other words, they tell all the details of the story. This happened, that happened. It's like painting a mental picture so that they bring the person into the trauma with them. Emotional rest is not talking about the specific details of the trauma, but what did that event do to your heart?
Yes.
How did it affect you at the deepest part of yourself? And so I think it's important if you're daughter comes back and says, well, you remember that time? And she starts kind of telling the story.
Yes.
Is trying to bring the picture back. Let her share what she needs to, but don't get too caught up in the weeds of the storytelling. Redirect it. What did that do to your heart?
Because that's also where
moment?
dads may get defensive. You're remembering wrong. Let me correct
Exactly.
the details. And you're saying
And
it
the
doesn't
details
matter.
are trauma dumping.
Exactly.
You're just repainting the picture and trying to bring you both back into the moment. That's unbeneficial. The part that needs healing is when all that happened, what did it do to you?
Yes.
How did it affect your heart?
Your heart.
And then from your heart, respond to that. Because usually it's not, as a parent, you're not trying to hurt your kids, but sometimes your mouth gets slippery.
That's a good way to put it.
And you say things before your brain catches it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you say things in joking, but it wasn't a joke to them.
Stuck.
And so we just have to be able to give ourselves grace and say, yeah, I didn't really mean it that way. I'm so sorry that, that's how it was, that's how it came out, or, but that wasn't what I meant. I wish I had responded, and then say what you want to say.
I wish I would have said this, or now with 20 hindsight, or now with more maturity and wisdom. Because I think even for me, where sometimes, like when I think of like wounds and injuries that I've had from, let's say, my grandfather, where there was sexual abuse there, he died when I was 8. So sometimes it's, you can't go back to the person.
Right.
And either hear what they meant. But what I found for my healing journey is that I really believed the message to my heart by that abuse was that I was basically a piece of trash. I could be thrown away. I didn't have a lot of value. So even though I did a lot of things right, and I was one of those kids that was a rule follower and a hard worker, a performer, some people would call that, always working for excellence. But it didn't matter, because underneath that, I think some of that overcompensated for a deeper self-belief that I wasn't really worth all that much. So for me, my healing came when Jesus really showed me himself on the cross also in an abused, vulnerable place, and saying, I stepped in for you. I'm here for you. I understand you, and I put value on you. And I don't say that as a pat answer. I think if someone would have told me that, I'd go, I know, I'm valuable to Jesus, and who doesn't know that? But when he met me really face-to-face, person-to-person, it rewrote not the details of the story, but the meaning I had attached to the story. And as crazy as this may sound, is when I was in college, now we call it dumpster diving. Back in the day, we called it garbage runs. And my friend Lynn and I were the two girls that the guys let go with them. We would go after hours, I know this sounds so gross, behind a store and climb in the dumpsters and find things. Like we would literally find unopened jars of pickles and stuff. And we knew poor college students, we would bring them to them. And it was super, I don't know, it kind of started my thrifting way early. But God one day literally like blew my mind and said, you love looking for treasures in the trash. So see, you thought you were trash, that you were worthless. But look I've rewritten your story to say I'm always finding beauty from ashes and treasures in the trash. And literally, it reworked a lot of that trauma for me. So I think you and I are both saying we can always find healing no matter what the blow has been. So in that, dads, what I'm telling you is I felt seen by Jesus, loved by him, and connected to him to go, is that where you gave me a love for thrifting, where I can go in a Goodwill and find something that's been discarded that now has value to me, even if I have to repurpose it? And so it's kind of become a thing where I'm like, it's my story. I'm not embarrassed of it. So how has Jesus met you in your story? We all have traumas. Maybe it's been with your relationship with your dad, Dr. Saundra. What's that relationship been like, and how has God brought healing to you?
Yes, well, there's definitely been a healing journey. My dad was in the military, and he and my mom had me as their first child. She died in childbirth, so he left the hospital and widow with a newborn. And he was still actively in the military. So I was actually raised by my great-grandmother at 77 when she took me into her home.
Wow.
My dad and I had an estranged relationship probably for the majority of my life until around college, when I started wanting to build more of a relationship with him. And it was really interesting because we had these kind of conversations where he was like, you know what? I was so wounded after your mother's death that I couldn't I didn't feel like I could heal with you by my side, knowing that you were the result of the two of us.
Oh,
and so it helped.
He thought he was protecting you.
He
in
thought
a way.
he was protecting me. He felt like that it was best for me to be raised in a house that didn't have so much pain. And what he didn't realize is that not having him was the pain, because I lost both parents at that hospital. And so it was a healing journey for the two of us. And I think what really helped me was that he owned up to it. You know, he shared his heart. He heard my heart. We cried together. We healed together. We moved on to have a beautiful relationship up until his death a few years ago. And, you know, he got to be a fantastic grandpa to my kids.
Aww.
So it was one of those journeys where there was a season where I did not feel known by him, seen, loved, or known by him, or connected in any way. But with time, patience, grace, with the opportunity for both of us to have emotional rest moments, and those moments of social rest where we spend time together, when there's no agenda, there's no birthday party or Christmas or any of the things, we're just going to spend time together because we didn't have time before, and just learn about each other.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that part of your story, because the thread throughout our conversation today, and I want to underscore this for dads, is it involves talking. It involves communicating. That a dad is communicating, here's what I'm seeing, or let's both do this assessment on rest together. Or here's the part of the story where I've hurt you. Tell me how I hurt you so I can make amends. And that's what you and your dad have done it. And so the seeing and the loving and connecting involved communicating, talking.
Absolutely.
So that's really the underscoring message that's throughout this whole conversation. Well, I end every show with a go step, and I know we've given dads a lot of practical ideas today, but let me ask you one last question. What is one way you would encourage every dad listening to take one step forward in letting his daughter know he sees her and he loves her, and that's how he can connect with her?
Well, social rest is specifically about speaking life into someone. And so one of the things that I would recommend is speak the blessing over your daughter. What is it that you see in them maybe that they don't see in themselves? And actually say it out loud to them. You know, I love my kids, and they love giving me these gifts for Mother's Day, and it's cute. But the best gift they give to me is when they tell me something about me that they're proud of, or something about me that they admire. And I think parents, we should do that as well.
Oh, I love that. It's so practical, and that's an amazing way to really wrap up our conversation today. So thank you, Doctor, for joining us. And it's so fun to call you Doctor, because I haven't had physicians on here, and so I just want to keep underscoring that you're bringing medical expertise, spiritual sensitivity, vulnerability, authenticity by sharing your story, and you've modeled the very things you're talking about. So thank you for the gift you've given all of us today.
It's been my pleasure to be with you.
Today on Your Mark has been Seeing, Loving, and Connecting, a dad's guide to a deeper bond with his daughter. And tell dads once again where they can find you and find these resources.
Yes, my website is ichoosemybestlife.com. I have a podcast by the same name. And then the free resource we mentioned was the rest quiz. And it goes over the 7 types of rest from my book, Sacred Rest, as well as bridges with my book, Being Fully Known.
Oh, love it. Well, this wraps up another week's program. I'm Dr. Michelle Watson-Canfield, the Dad Whisperer, signing off and encouraging you to make today a day where you intentionally and consistently invest in pursuing your daughter's hearts. Go Dads!
Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Dad Whisperer podcast with Dr. Michelle Watson-Canfield. If you're looking for more resources to support the father-daughter relationship, or if you want to connect personally with Dr. Michelle, you can find all the information you need at drmichellewatson.com. That's drmichellewatson.com. And remember, you can listen to the Dad Whisperer podcast anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. And while you're there, we'd love for you to subscribe and leave us a review. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again on the next edition of the Dad Whisperer podcast with Dr. Michelle Watson-Canfield.